this exciting series. Now, this particular discussion is going to focus on a global dharmic identity. And my students, especially to my students and people who read my books and our community, I would like to reiterate that dharma is a platform of truth and justice, and dharma is a platform for logic, reasoning, and open questioning, like we always have said. And that makes dharma a unique platform for a democracy like ours in the US. We are the oldest democracy, and India is the largest democracy. So this particular author who has come to our session now, you have seen him a couple of times, and you have seen his videos and you liked it. I'm going to ask him specific questions on relevant current affairs as well as the solutions. Uh, so without delay, I'll introduce you again to Sri Ratan Shardaji, a very eminent author and a very eminent, I call it pracharak, which means in preacher. And also he's a very eminent personality in India media circles. So welcome, Ratan Shardaji.
Namaste.
Namaste.
Good morning and namaste. Good morning to me, good evening to you.
So my first question is that...
Before you proceed, I have to just dispel a few notions about democracy. You'll be surprised that India had democracy way back in Gupta Empire's time, that is around 4 BC or something, when we had Janapadas, which basically means committees of the local people and direct democracy. It's on record, it is documented. And we had this panchayat system since those times, and panchayat system never died. So we had village republics for a long time. So as a temperament, India is a democratic country. So normally we call democracy as per the Western terms. Yes, America is the oldest democracy in the modern terms. The concept of people's republics for a long time. Yeah, please.
So I'll also add to that. In my second book, I have covered that the panchayat system is coming from Mahabharata. So Maharaj Yudhishthir was organizing the villages as Panch Pancha. So the panchayat system is also, so actually, historically speaking, you corrected me just now, and that India is the oldest democracy also. But in modern parlance, people call it USA.
Yes.
But India is
That's
the
what I
oldest.
said.
Yes.
Yeah.
So coming back to some incident which happened in Palghar, and there is a big outrage because two of the great dharmic followers of our culture were hurt, and actually fatally hurt, and which is unpardonable in many ways, and especially from American Hindu point of view, that is a reprehensible act. We condemn it, and we in every way possibly want to help those families, especially those two families or their mata. So what is your viewpoint on that incident?
First of all, I'm also again correct. I'm getting a lot of echo. Can you please see how to correct it? Okay, suppose one thing we must remember, that there is a third person also, a very poor man from scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, Mr. Telgude, who was also lynched, and he has a very poor family to support. These two people had already given family life. They were part of dharmic akhadas, oracle schools of thought. But this poor chap was just a driver, and he had a poor family to support, and he has also lost his life. Coming to the Palghar incident, yes, it's a very reprehensible incident. Unfortunately, because they are Hindu sadhus, there is a left press. The communists are trying to downplay the incident and calling it an accident. It was not an accident. The first part was an accident when they were stopped by the local villagers, and they were pulled out and they were being thrashed. But then police came. They took him to forest police station, where they were protected. And after some time, the local parties collected all these various people in hundreds. They came to the police chowki, and policemen, as you can see in the videos which are there on the social media, and also that they were just handed over. That is the worst part, that the law protectors became the law breakers, and they simply let the poor sadhus onto the crowd, on the mercy of the crowd, and they were beaten to death, and they just watched. That is the most horrific part of this particular incident. Nowhere we will find a 70-year-old person being handed over to crowds to be beaten up. There were 15 policemen. They had guns and they did nothing. So that is a tragic part of this particular story. And secondly, so when you say it is an accident, when people try to say no, it was targeted and incident where they conspired to kill the three people.
So
That is part one. Part two, yeah, please.
see, in USA, in USA, I can say I've been here for a long time, and in American police has one thing very good in law enforcement in USA, that in order to uphold the law of the land, they go to any extent of violence which is required to deter these criminal elements, and that makes USA very strong. If the action is taken at the local level, and also in the US law enforcement, forensics has become the integral part of policing. So where the forensics, every police station is equipped with forensics, and that's how they help the local people in a very constructive way. So the normal question which Americans will have is, and to through you, your viewpoint, I'm asking you that why did police did not take an action at the local level before it even goes to politicians?
Yeah. See, I would like to explain the geography. This particular tribal belt is right on the highway which connects Mumbai on the west side of India to the western side of India, going through Gujarat and Rajasthan. So it's not an isolated place, first of all. It's a regular traffic on that particular highway. Even during lockdown, when there's lockdown, of course, there should be anything, but they are on the main road. They are not somewhere hidden, somewhere inside. There are villages inside, but this main particular center is on the highway. That is first point. Secondly, talking about the police belong to the local, generally from the local area. The problem with India is that the police is interfered very regularly by the local politicians, and they have a huge influence on them. And police are very afraid to act if the local politicians enter into police station and browbeat the police people, because the party in power can then get the ministers to work on this police, get them transferred, get them harassed. So this problem of Indian police is very serious, and especially in the backward areas or those areas where there is no direct communication. These people face a serious problem of political interference. Here also, to look at the background, the people who collected were collected by the local Communist Party, and most of them, those who are arrested, do they belong to Communist Party, and the local MLA is a Communist MLA who had lost last time to BJP but won this time. So just to go to the background of this particular story, apart from the law and order situation, another important part was 3 days this incident was covered up. 3 days, 72 hours for a place which is 100 kilometers from Mumbai, which is well connected, and where there are telephones. If you feel that you can hide a particular tragic story for 72 hours because it is inconvenient for the ruling party or ruling alliance, it is really horrible for the media and for the democracy of India and for the people who talk of democracy. So these people who talk of freedom of expression, the left people who are now controlling the government in Maharashtra, who talk of freedom of expression, who talk of tolerance, for them to hide such horrific incident for 3 days was not really done. It came out because of social media, because of huge pressure from the social media. And now the background, if I have to tell you the background, Palghar has been a hotbed of communist activities, the church, for long time. The first rebellion took place in 1945 by the communist people of that time, of the local tribals. And as you know, communism itself is a religion. It's a religion of agnostics who don't believe in religion, who hate religion. They especially hate Hindu religion because of spirituality, and communists don't really like anything spiritual, because they believe your welfare is only materialism and human flesh and blood. They don't have spiritual side to themselves. So they hate spiritual religions like Hindus. That is the reason there is a strong undercurrent of anti-Hindu feeling there. Church, like any other churches around India in the tribal belt, in the backward areas or northeast or the tribal belts of MP, Chhattisgarh and Jharkhand, Odisha, they are definitely very aggressively converting. They had a free hand for a long time and they were successful. And the problem with conversion is not just conversion, they try to create hate. There are videos available from Pavlikar itself where they denounce Hindu gods, where they create hate against Hindu gods. In tribal areas, they ask you to throw away the idols when you convert. They tell you to burn your scriptures. So that kind of uprooting the roots is what happens when you convert. That is the problem with the conversion. Now, this cycle of communist violence and church was stopped by the Hindu forces when they started a hostel in 1967. Vanvasi Kalyan Ashram, one of the RSS inspired organizations, started a hostel there for the students there, the weak tribal students. So as soon as it opened, there were sustained attacks, continuous attacks on the volunteers who were working there. They were normal family people who had left family and come to this place. At that time, it was quite backward to work on these tribal students to offer them a good place to study and let them stay in a good place. So they were attacked. There is one gentleman called Appaji Joshi in nearby place who is still alive, whose skull was nearly broken into two, but he somehow survived. He has given his stories recently to some people, and there are other old people who have worked there for long years, have gone there. So in that belt, as the Hindu influence increased, the church, the church influence and the communist influence too started decreasing. Their influence area and being reduced to smaller places of lynching of the sadhus because they were saffron. So it was not premeditated for for let us say days, but definitely that hate played a part, and that hate was used to create the second round of violence when they were already saved. And that is the background of this entire story, which is slowly been coming out. They were avoiding it, and very interestingly, there are 20 Bangladeshis illegal immigrants have been caught recently, and the news came in a very left-oriented paper called The Hindu. The Rohingyas have been caught there. So this place has become a hotbed of various activities, and this is where the law and order machinery, the police has to be very effective, and the politicians have to come above their hate, above their divisive politics.
So one very common observation by most Americans is that number one thing is political correctness is America is not a politically correct country. You know, you can see that when President Trump
It has
acts.
changed recently. It has changed. The fashionable political correctness has gone out of window once Mr. Trump has come in. But they also had this issue of liberals trying to dictate terms. So it has changed now, yes.
It has changed a lot, and so America doesn't want to become Europe again, where they want to
True.
condone such activities. And Americans have a fascination with India because of yoga, meditation, Hindu scriptures. You know, you'll be surprised that almost 35 to 45 million Americans, they have deep respect for Shiva and Ganesh, and through the yoga community. And Rishikesh is a yoga capital of the world. Now, when these incidents happen in Palghar, it creates a very bad impression of law and order in the American media in many ways. And because it is done against Hindus, it is normally not caught up by the mainstream leftist media of USA. But there are other media channels like the Epoch channel and other channels, they are actually picking up. So, what steps that India should take very proactively without being politically correct? A criminal is a criminal. It doesn't matter which faith he belongs to.
True.
And what steps they can take to stop this criminal activity so that the people who have such big faith in the Hindu scriptures, Ramayana, Mahabharata, they can get some lessons or they can quote it as a good example.
Let me, clarify some ideas that West carries. India is much more safer place as compared to West, as compared to many other places in the world. If you look at the per capita crime, it is the lowest, one of the lowest in the world. If you look at rapes, it is one of the lowest in the world, not even in top 10. And it is because we are a dharmic society. We control ourselves, we respect each other. That is the major cause for law that you see here, that the order you see here, it is not because of police. It's not a police state. If you look at the per capita police, I don't have numbers right now, it is one of the lowest in the world. But still, how do we have so much of law and order? The problem is some incident happens and the India in a poor light, because this rise of India has been resisted for a long time by vested interest. And that is the reason every incident is blown out of proportion. Yes, every incident is bad, especially incident like lynching, incidents like rape. But as I said, it is the dharmic nature of the society, the spiritual nature of the society. We find the per capita police being lowest. As I told you, in Palghar, in the police station, there are just 15 police. It's a big center. It's a district center. Similarly, that if you look at per lakh or per 100,000 availability of bullet is lowest. So this issue of law and order is limited to some pockets, is the result of huge consumerism, where everybody wants to snatch to have something good. If you see the way the migrant laborers, when they left Delhi during this lockdown, lakhs of them moved out. I think I talked about that earlier also. About a lakh or 2 lakh, that is 100,000 to 200,000 people came on the bus depot. From there, they started walking. They were taken by buses to thousands of kilometers up, but not a single violent incident. That is the law-abiding nature, the spiritual discipline that our people carry. Imagine such a situation in America or any other Western place. Found riotous crowds, riots everywhere. Even when they're hungry, they are being offered food, but they have not looted any shop. They have not done any violence. So that is the beauty of the civilization, which has to be highlighted. And as far as lawlessness, this issue of violence is concerned, yes, we need to be more vigilant. We need to, but that, as I said, result all the conditions lie with the society, which is dharma bound. It lies with the politicians to leave police alone. Once there is reform and politicians stop interfering in the police force, I can tell you they can do wonders. Our policemen work for 16 hours a day, 14 hours a day as a routine because of the pressure of law and order situation, especially after the terrorism which came to India. And people behave, they do well, they never disrespect police. The recent incidents of stoning of the police comes from a special community, the community called the religion of peace. Otherwise, there has never been a such concerted effect to degrade the police forces or be attack those police forces.
So I'm very well connected to many American politicians, and they all have deep respect for India, all of them, and they value Indian culture and Indian heritage. And everyone, most of the educated people in North America, they are aware of India's peaceful communities, especially Hindu community and Buddhist community. They know that, and they also know the problem creators. So that is not hidden. The fact is not hidden because everyone goes by the numbers in the US. But the point which they naturally ask, especially even in the Kashmir incident also, they asked why Hindus moved out. Is their home? And you partly answered that is the politicians getting involved. So is there a way where India or as a country, Bharat as a country can put a very stricter controls on specific incidents of violence, especially these violences against saints, Hindu saints, because India, majority of the followers are Hindu dharma, Hindu religion. India is a land of Hinduism. India is a land of Buddhism, and that is their main culture.
If you look at the incidents of sadhu lynching, it is very, very rare exception. Hindus or the Indian huge respect for saffron. And if you look at entire violence of last 2, 3, 4 years, whichever period you want to see, you will hardly find incident where saffron-clad people have been attacked. Very few. And even the lynching, which have been made hugely popular by the media, of a few incidents of lynching of cow smugglers or gun runners or a thief and made them religious, is tragic. When no violence should be taken in hand by the people, but these are rare incidents. There are more incidents of cow protectors who were stopping smuggling. being beaten to death, being hurt. Policemen have been beaten to death in such cases. But overall, as I said, number of incidents are very low, and the stricter the government is becoming stricter. If you look at Kashmir issue also, it has taken a totally new bold stand, and slowly things are coming to normal. Hindus are finding it possible that they will return to Kashmir Valley, which was not even thought of earlier. So if the government is firm, if government is backed by the people, if government is dharmic, these issues will slowly die down. And if you see the nature of our democracies, that we avoid huge use of force. The way there were sit-ins in the protest of refugee bill for minorities from the neighboring Muslim countries was controlled in a very sober manner. They were not fired upon. They were not hit very hard. The government took its own time to control them and tire them out. Even now, when there is this Jamaati Tablighi Jamaat Markaz, which was the major cause of the spike in our Wuhan virus cases, they were treated with very they were treated softly. They were not. They should have been punished much harshly. They should not been allowed to go out of their place where they were sitting. Somehow it happened. See, we have state governments. We have state governments who control law and order. So everywhere the central government cannot interfere. But slowly, especially due to Wuhan virus, governments have realized that law and order has to be firm and has to be very strict. So we find the strictness paying off. The violation of lockdown is has reduced. It was always voluntary. So the beauty of lockdown again for a 130 billion large country was because, as I said in the first part of your discussions with me, the voluntary nature which Prime Minister Modi was able to convey to the people. So he always appeals to the goodness of the people, to the voluntary nature of working for the society. That is why we've been successful in creating an atmosphere where Wuhan is in control. The spike has not really come the way people feared, in spite of all your Western, left newspapers wishing in their heart that India should go in a worse way. And if you look at their editorials, their reports, they wished, they still don't believe that India has number of deaths are so low. But that's a fact because people voluntarily disaster.
Yeah. No, I think COVID-19 control has been the biggest success of India, and it has created a deep respect for India in the Western communities, especially in USA. And the
See, if you see why it was controlled, if you see the number of people who are involved in India in this all these epidemics, we are 1.3 billion people. It was the prime initial moves done by Prime Minister Modi. You look at the idea of cleanliness, sanitation, toilets. People laughed at, but I saw the video where Los Angeles people are now being all kind of dirty things on the streets, and it's because what everybody assumed was suddenly found to be wanting. And in India, when Modi he gave poor the cooking, he gave the poor roads connectivity and water. All these things were the reason why poor don't need to come on the roads anymore, don't need to go out anymore. So this basic amenities provided to the poor has also helped us fight this epidemic in a much better way. So that is the lesson, that whatever he did for earlier 5-6 years is paying dividends even now, because they're getting a direct cash transfer to their accounts, because they have things supplied to them, because they can depend on their internal resources which are totally absent earlier on. So that's the way we fought it, and it has been a very integral approach.
See, one of the leftist media in the US, New York Times and Washington Times, New York Post, Washington Post, these are the ultra leftist media channels of USA, which even Americans don't take it seriously. So CNN report is just like NDTV report in India. It's practically useless because these media outlets, they thrive on atrocity literature, which many of the Rajiv Malhotra has also highlighted that. Atrocity literature is what they produce. So nobody takes them seriously, even in the US. So if they write something, it's almost a junk value as soon as they publish it. But the mainstream Americans, they have deep respect for India. And not because of India being a cultural or a democracy or anything. the attraction of India comes from Hindu Dharma, Sanatan Dharma. That's the main thing of India. When Americans talk about India, they talk about Rishikesh, Vrindavan. They don't talk about Bombay or Delhi or anything. These are all external for them. For them, the
But see,
main
for them, it is also important. One thing that is important for Americans who love India's dharmic ways is that India's dharma doesn't just talk of spirituality. Spirituality is part of four purusharthas. So we talk of artha, dharma, kama, moksha. We respect earning money. We respect wealth. We respect the importance of family, of desires, and of working for the society, and finally looking for the nirvana, as what in Christianity you call liberation. So we have all the four facets of life. It is not just unifocus on spirituality or gaining liberation. It is fulfilling a life's all the important objectives of life and looking for nirvana in the best possible way, following the ethical way of life. This particular aspect of India, of our dharma, or of having four phases of life, as a brahmachari studying, then as a family man enjoying family life, earning money with dharma, of course, following the ethical norms, and then finally going for social work called sannyas ashram and working for the society, finally moving out of the normal family activities. So this holistic view of life is equally important as one part of it, which is spirituality, which overawes everything else that we see. But that this practical view of life is also something that Americans need to understand our dharmic ways.
I think the balance that you mentioned just now is
Yeah.
it's a very unique contribution of India to the world. The balance, the
Yeah.
purushartha, the four purushartha you mentioned, and I think the relevance of that is increasing day by day in American society also.
Oh yes.
And I think after COVID-19, I'm seeing more and more people appreciating the way India tackled it in a very unique way. Like you also spoke in the last interview, the way Modi ji introduces Janta curfew. Like these are very novel democratic concepts which even America has to learn. And the
One
way
more thing that the American or Western world rather would have to learn is to learn live within its means. As I said in the last discussion, not exploit nature, not conquer nature, but live with nature, respect nature, and control the wants. The extreme consumerism that we saw, which saw spoiling the whole earth, the planet, the environment, has to be given up. As you see, nature renews itself within 15 days of lockdowns. If that is the case, when animals come on the road, when birds are there, we realize we cannot live without them. We have to live with them. So this important lesson of India is also to be learned by the world, and that is where dharmic values of India need to be imbibed by everybody to overcome in the long term the disasters that we created in the name of comforts we want, which are many of them are not important. We realize it. We have realized in lockdown the importance of family, when isolated people have gone into depression, where they were not able to look after themselves. That is where the voluntary nature, the integral nature of family, the society, is a lesson that needs to be imbibed from the dharmic India.
No, absolutely, absolutely, because that balance is what is missing in American society.
One last point I would like to make, since I think we'll be running out of time, is the nature of relation between the dharmic forces in Christianity and Islam on the other side. The aggressive conversion that missionaries are doing, in fact, more than Vatican, it is now become a business. The evangelists who collect money from US and other Western societies who claim that are liberating the local people, rather harvesting the soul, has become a huge business. It is very aggressive. It hurts the dharmic society. It hurts people who are not aggressive, who don't convert, like Hindus. They don't convert. They don't go out to convert people. They don't harvest souls. They respect every religion. They respect Christianity and Islam also. But this missionary crisis, with the aggression of Islam, with the aggression of Islamist forces, the jihadi forces, who with even less numbers, or where they are in commendable number, they're trying to overtake the societies, take over the societies of Europe, of America, rather than joining hands with dharmic forces and fighting this violent, aggressive religion and political system, I would say, which wants Sharia, which wants domination of their own religion over every other community where they rule, where they wish to rule, vis-a-vis a dharmic society which is very friendly. If this alliance, if Christians really thought positively, they should have an alliance with dharmic forces so they can fight spiritually the ideological battle with these jihadi forces which are threatening to run over the world. If they can't, they will fight with each other. But now, if you see conditions, Arab system on others, is something that Christians must realize. They are on the same side. They have given up the spirit of crusade. They are now more liberal, democratic, and they have led the world in democracy. But this blind urge to save people in the name of saving people, convert people, uproot their civilization, uproot their civil values, is something that the church has to rethink. Evangelists have to rethink. This is not the way. They will have the entire West Jihadi forces and they'll try to create islands of their own faith in dharmic societies of India or Southeast Asia. Is something they will lose over time. So this, I think this is something very important that I need to pass on the message that they need to strike, to be patient. They have to stop this urge to liberate people who are already happy in their own culture. And if anybody wants to convert, it's fine, but you cannot use lure, money, and bribe to convert them or to create hate in the society for others who don't follow their faith. The news stories coming from Andhra Pradesh or southern state or Tamil Nadu are not really very good. And when they are facing this danger, they realize this danger. They should really understand that there is no need to make enemies with some of the most peaceful, respectful civilizations in the world.
No, you're right, and I think you're absolutely right. The business of conversion doesn't apply in India. I think the Western, especially the Western church bodies and Vatican, they need to know that India has a very far superior dharmic culture, and they don't need to be saved by some dogmatic principles. And I think we have said it very openly in USA. We regularly talk about it, very freely we talk about it, and we will continue to fight for
And
it.
they must realize it's a commercial. See, evangelism has become a commercial venture. There are people who do evangelism and they are millionaires in India today. And they charge funds. Is it really fair? Is it a commercial activity? If you do commercial activity, how is Christianity as a religion remains a religion?
No,
So people who
actually,
support these evangelists must realize this.
no, church is a business. It is well known in the US and other places that church is a business. And that's why most Americans are also losing faith in the church. And especially Vatican, which comes from, it's a large business. It's no longer based on spirituality as such. And the Indians have to, what we have to do is, I think we have to, as as an American Hindu, we have to focus on protecting our people from falling prey to these commercial interests. I think that's where we have to work on. A lot more to discuss. We'll cover in the next video.
Yeah, but see, that is what we want to protect. What we want to protect. But my point is that as a policy, Christianity or the church, the people who control church must realize that making enemies with dharmic people is not a good idea in the overall civilizational clash that we see today. That's my important point. That they need to have more friends rather than enemies when there is a huge civilizational crisis. There is a civilization clash which has been pointed out much earlier. And unless they realize this, they'll be losing.
Yeah, I think dharma stands for peace and happiness, and loka samasta, like a happiness for all. And I think respecting that culture of India is a responsibility of all people, including the church and also other invaders of ideological invaders to India. So with that, Sharadji, with that Ratan Shardaji, we will end this particular discussion. We will come back more on similar topics.
Thank you, Aditya.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure to have you. Thank you.
Thank you. Good day.
So, Shardaji, one next, Ratanji, for the next question I have is, so we had a nice conversation, and the one part was remaining, and I think if you can cover that, it will be great. So, do you think that there is some sort of nexus between the foreign
There is
bodies?
such in the voice. Hello, hello.
Sorry.
I was getting voice problems, so I hope
Okay.
my recording comes out fine.
Okay, fine. I'll do it one more time. Yeah. Um, So Shardaji, you covered a lot of points in this interview. My one last question to you before we wrap up this session will be that do you think that there is a nexus? Can you please elaborate more on the nexus which you see that has resulted in such kind of violence in India?
See, there is definitely nexus between the evangelist church, especially in the northeast, the tribal belts, and wherever they can with the communists and the terrorists. In northeast, the entire separatist movement was fueled by the church. In fact, just to give one example, four RSS full-time workers, very senior people, were kidnapped. They were taken to Bangladesh, and they never came back. And unfortunately, it was during around, I think, year 2000, and they never returned. There is a regular persecution of people who don't follow Christianity, who refuse to change their tribal religion, and people who want to work there. Slowly over years, this has come down a bit, but the terror nexus and this church nexus was definitely there, and it can be clearly seen if you see the documentation. Even in the thesis, I mentioned it, which I did for my Northeast study through my PhD studies. And same in tribal belt, you will remember the famous Graham Steen's case, where he was murdered by the irate local tribal people. That became a huge study. Millions of dollars are spent to create a halo around him and create a lot of books and literature of hate literature against Hindu, which were basically tribal people unhappy with their conversion. But within some time, a very venerated sannyasi there, Swami Lakshmananand Saraswati, was brutally murdered at the age of 80 years. The case was subdued. It was not allowed to come out. Then the tribal people started agitating. There were violent agitations. That is how the case came out.
Mhm.
Similarly, a Sadhvi was killed in tribal belt in Jharkhand, I think, in 2008. Again, there were Naxalite terrorists. In Palghar, you'll be surprised that the people who have got working for the bail of the pushing of the Ashtakari Sangatana is a bail for these people. Validates them to believe that there is a nexus.
Yeah, thank you, Chardaji. And one question, we I wanted to have just one to wrap it up, but I'll have one more. Is that what is the solution that American Hindus can do to help stop this kind of, at least from the USA, we can work with you to stop this kind of effect on India, impact on India.
See, if you recall Huntington's thesis of clash of civilizations many years back, it is coming true now. You are seeing typical clash of the Islamic values vis-a-vis the Western world's Christian values, and on the our side, on the eastern side, the values of dharmic traditions, Hindus, Buddhists, Jains, and the entire group of dharmic religions. So this particular axis where they are trying to overhaul the entire world, and we find Christian church and the evangelist people are trying to convert aggressively the people in our region. So this unnecessary irritation, unnecessary animosity between the Hindus, dharmic people, and the Christianity is totally avoidable. They
Mm.
have to cover their fort first. They have nearly lost Europe. If not lost, they are about to lose many areas to the very aggressive jihadi forces, Islamist forces. But rather than protecting where they are, their civilization are, they are trying counterbalance and trying to do harvesting of souls, as they call it, in the Indian continent, the Southeast Asia, which I think is against their own interests. If they had some intelligent people, they would know that they would have to ally with the dharmic forces, that ally with the religion which gives respect to all the dharmic traditions, which give respect to all the religions. They respect every kind of thought that takes you to the supreme truth, the God. So these are the people with the changing values of Christianity, which has become tolerant compared to the earlier Old Testament days and doesn't go for crusades anymore. But this missionary zeal to convert people and save the so-called souls, the sinful souls, has to be given up. This is hurting them because dharmic people, a long tradition of 5,000, 10,000 years, they will survive. But will Christianity survive if it is fighting on the carbon copy of the same kind of approach to religion? I doubt it. So they need to ally with such forces. Long years back, this was proposed, but even today, if they realize that they need to ally with positive forces, forces who give equal space to everybody, rather than try to create another struggle where they try to change the faith, they try to kill their roots with their own civilization and create unrest in the society. That really hurts. In Andhra Pradesh is the biggest playground today, apart from Tamil Nadu in India, where there is very aggressive evangelization going on. They're trying to take cells of sacred Balaji, Tirupati Balaji also. There are villages where Hindu festivals are not allowed to be done. There is evangelism where they force other people and persuade people with money, power, and everything. Of conversion due to faith is fine. Your bribe is something which is very, very abhorrent. So they have to come out of this mindset and they have to realize it is a fight for survival for them, for their entire Western civilization. So for that they need allies, and there is no better ally than the Hindu dharmic forces.
You made a very solid point to Americans that dharma is a voice of reason and dharmic people are a voice of reason, and it makes more sense for the Western civilization to collaborate and cooperate with the dharmic
And
forces. Yes.
and do realize commercial business, they charge per dollar per head. Can you imagine how degraded the human value of human life is when they say that 600 per harvested soul, etc., and they live in palatial mansions? They are millionaires in India who are doing nothing else, and I think that may be true of West also. But this is not the way. This is not religiosity. This is pure commerce, and this will go against the very grain of Jesus.
No, I think I'm sitting in a city which is one of the biggest cities for soul harvesting in India. And
Oh,
so I'm sitting in the home, San Diego. And in USA, mostly Democrats engage in such activities. And so Indians do not know that. So, those, some of them are very good friends of mine also who do that. So my message to all of you too, who see my video, is just stop that. It doesn't work that way, and work cooperatively with all of us. And the ultimate goal is that the humanity should be respected and should not be treated like animals, like an animal. Thank you so much, and we'll catch up in the next video. Thank you, Shardaji. Namaskar.
thanks.